Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. My name is Katana Malinowski, and I am the host of Transformational Art with Katana, making the unmanageable manageable. Welcome. I am here today with my good friend, Peilin Chiu. She is a holistic health coach and energy medicine practitioner. Hello, Peilin.
Hello, Katana. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you for having me here today.
You are very welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. So I would really like to know and have our audience get to know, who is Peilin as a person?
I think about this question last night and I realized that, I never really seriously thinking about it. So I would say I am myself overall a curious and inquisitive person. And I always want to find out more about things that attracts my interest. And that's actually oftentimes leading me down to the rabbit hole and shape who I am and what I'm doing today. But I also asked my son, Ian, this question, and he told me, Mom, in addition to being my mom, you're a health nut and you're a modern hippie. I was like, oh, I never thought about modern hippie. I mean, I admit to some degree that I used to be a health nut and I still try to be a healthy person, but I don't like that term. But that, modern hippie is really interesting term for me. And I looked it up, I realized I do fit into quite some traits in that category, but it never occurred to me that term can be used on me. So it's interesting.
Wow, it's really interesting to have asked your son that question. Were you surprised by his response?
Yes, I was. And then I was surprised that he obviously only had seen certain part of me, and not others. So it's interesting. I think probably that's my way of parenting that affected his perception on me.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's interesting. We don't often see ourselves as who we are and how we show up in the world. And it's really interesting to get those mirrors back from
The
people that we
feedback.
know.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And then one more thing I've been working hard recently, and I am really aware of it, was that I used to be a perfectionist. And then I could be pretty controlling and, stubborn. I'm so glad that I am coming out of all those. I'm recovering from all those. And I'm just, way happier today than when I was younger. Because those things obviously caused some trouble for me, but I didn't see it until I was older. And I'm glad that that's kind of part of the growth.
I think we're going to come back to that a little bit later with regard to those things that we hold on to and certain habits that we have that create stress in our lives. Because as you know, I'm a transformational art and wellness strategist, and I work with people to help reduce the effects of those stressors. So, I help them improve their focus. I help them improve from irritability. I help them improve from relationship issues. And a lot of that is related to what you were just talking about, different habits that may have formed
Yes.
in addition to many other things.
Yes, I can
And
totally relate.
I definitely want to revisit that in terms of health. So I will come back to that.
Okay.
Um, what makes you happy?
Well, these days, it makes me happy when I am in a creative mode or when I am walking under the winter sun. Like today, if there's sun, it will make me happy. And it made me happy when I see people can live their life potential, especially now with what I've been doing as a professional. it made me happy to see that I can impact people's life and see their transformation.
I love that. Yes, I too have seen that and experienced that. And when you see someone's face light up for the first time since you start working with them, and you see that healthy color and just their overall, outward presentation of themselves, how they're showing up in the world, has
Yes.
changed all for the positive just by, working with you and doing your process. It's amazing and it's incredible and definitely motivating to keep going.
Exactly.
So on the flip side of that, what is it that makes you sad or angry?
So while it will make me really sad when I see injustice in the society, in our local communities, and also it made me sad to see that people give their power away knowingly or unknowingly. For example, a lot of people that would give their healing power away and thought that they would only can be fixed or cured by certain outside things, like health, the doctors or the pharmaceutical drugs. And it also made me sad that to see, there are people giving away their rights over things they have control of. And healing is just one of them. And there's other things in other aspects of life as well. Happiness, for example. We all have that power to, create the life that we want. But oftentimes, because of our, limiting belief system or how we are brought up, that really can become the obstacle for us getting to that point. And so that's why I am now on this journey of trying to bring awareness to people on these particular area of life.
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that is also something that makes me both sad and angry. Is the sad part is definitely people surrendering their power in so many different ways, and particularly to Western medicine, traditional ways of approaching health and medicine, which is often not preventative.
Mm-hmm.
They want to treat you. They want to give you medication because it keeps you coming back to the system over and over and over. And then there's also the other side of it, which is they seem to be, fearful in many ways of those of us that have other approaches.
Yes.
In that they feel a sense of scarcity. That's my impression. That's my opinion, is that the reason why they approach it that way is because they figure that if somebody else is helping someone, that's one less person they're going to make some money from.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to help break that down, because we support people and we support them. We can help relieve a lot of the pressure they have to fill a need they can't fulfill. I just read an article that said that counselors, for example, are overwhelmed. They can't reach all the people that need support. I would like to help them, and the people that need it, understand that we're here as complementary to them and we can do this together. And if helping people is the true goal, then they should be open to that.
Mm-hmm. I think that I also see the problem not necessarily individuals, in terms of those doctors. I believe most doctors, they were trained to be caring and loving, and they all took the oath before they started practicing medicine, right? Mm-hmm. They all want to help people, they want to save lives. But once they got into this institution. They got all institutionalized. And the system now is that, it's such a complex system that doesn't always allow the doctors to do what they want to do. So as a result, most doctors now are being reduced to only be the endorsement of the pharmaceutical. What they do mostly is matching, the patient's symptoms with the pharmaceuticals that could suppress the symptoms. And I don't believe the doctors are all bad. I believe they're all with the intention to help and save life, but it became a conscious act. If you want to be a real doctor, if you want to be really fulfilling what you intended to do, and that really takes a lot of courage for them to get out of that.
Yes. And there are definitely many other factors that influence the way that they treat and work with patients. But it definitely is one of those things that makes me sad and angry, is that, this is the only approach that can be taken. Right. And it has to be through these people this way, when that's not necessarily the approach that everybody wants and or needs. Sometimes it's just somebody there to support them and make them feel that they're seen and heard and feeling safe and in a nice container that embraces them and makes them, progress. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. Growing up, what did you want to become?
Well, I want to be a journalist from very early year on. I think I remember when I was 6th grade or 7th grade, I've already decided that I want to be a journalist. And the influence came from a friend of my dad's. He was a journalist. He wrote for a local newspaper. Or I should say, he was a local correspondent for a national published newspaper. Wow. And because he was kind of part of our life for a certain period in my life, I often overheard his conversation with my dad and their other friends, talking about how the community and how the politics and how their life kind of intertwined together. And through those conversations, I got the impression that, wow, the journalist is such a cool thing. First of all, people respected him, or they maybe just were afraid of his power. Mm-hmm. But anyway, in my teenage I thought that that's pretty cool, and that people respected him, and he always had the power to say things and that people really take it seriously. And that's kind of how I got the first impression. As I look back, I may be pretty ignorant and naive at that point, but for some reason that impression was strong enough to keep me through all the years. Eventually, I went to journalism school and became a journalist for 10 years before I came to the States.
Oh, wow. You were a practicing journalist?
Yes, I was a journalist for the largest newspaper in Taiwan back then, and I was pretty good. I was doing a pretty good job there.
That's fantastic. I have my minor is in journalism, and I have done some freelance journalism for an online paper. So that's fantastic that we share that little background there. So how did you get on the path that you're on now?
Well, that's a totally different chapter in my life. So I came to the States in 1999, and that's when I quit my journalist job and moved to the new country. And I thought, wow, this is a new life. I've totally enjoyed it, embraced it, and then free from all the stress and those pressure of getting scoops, right? But then as soon as I got here, I got so sick. I was sick all over. I guess as I look back, because of all the stress in those years of being a journalist. but anyway, I was so sick and I went to all kind of doctors and they couldn't find anything wrong with me, but they would keep giving me more prescriptions and more tests to be done. And finally, after probably almost a year, I just got so fed up. I decided that I wanted to take the healing into my own hands. That's how I started all this nutritional healing. And then later on, after I fixed myself, I mean, just within 2 months, actually, just overhauling my diet and my, doing the fasting and exercise regularly, all my symptoms, almost like at least 90% of them are all gone. So I've never weighed since then on the power of food. And soon after that, I got pregnant, which was a nice surprise. And I thought, wow, it's perfect. My daughter was perceived at the time when I was the healthiest in my life. Wow. And I thought everything is going to turn great, right? But then 5 months later, well, when she was 5 months old, she was born healthy as a full-term baby. But when she turned 5 months old, she was diagnosed with leukemia.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And that really just turned our world upside down. And that it kind of led me on to, the further deep into the natural healing path, because of course, it's such a serious disease. We want her to be treated conventionally, but at the same time, I try to find way to help her, at least, for example, reduce some side effects from the chemotherapy, and also try to give her body more support. And that's when I started getting into all the different natural modalities, natural healing methods. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, after battling for leukemia for over 4 years, and she still passed. And that kind of opened up. I mean, it led me down to the bottom of my life. I was really at the deepest spot in my life. But at the same time, because of the grief was so intense, I needed to find ways to comfort myself and knowing that she is okay. So I started getting really interested in all the metaphysical books, and I started reading those. And in that process, it helped, it gave me solace. At the same time, I discovered my true self.
That's beautiful.
So everything just came one after another. And with each challenge or, a construction, if you will, always came with a expansion and a tremendous learning. And so it's kind of going on cycles over the past 20 years. And eventually I come to this point where I am and doing what I'm doing. But it literally took me 20 years to get here.
Well, I'm very sorry for your loss, and
thank you.
Your transition into what you do and your awarenesses are just to be applauded and so beautiful, which is what leads me back to what we were talking about before. How important do you believe it is to be able to manage your stress in relationship to what you do with food?
Well, yes. Well, that's really the biggest learning for myself in terms of healing my body and also healing my emotions, especially healing my grief from having lost a child. After my daughter passed, my body was really in a mess. My adrenal completely burned out from those years of having all the physical, emotional, and mental stress of dealing with her treatment. So I was really not doing well, even though I've been eating very clean and healthy for almost 10 years by then. But I was still so sick. And then that got me understand that being healthy is not about just eating healthy food or exercise regular. There's way more factors in addition to those, fundamental things. And so that's when I started doing all the emotional healing and energy healing. I started looking into myself, what kind of emotions that weighed my body down, and what kind of empowerment that I can apply on myself to release those trapped emotions. And that also including food too, actually. Although eating healthy is the basic step, but in terms of how you eat it, how you combine foods can all make a difference there.
Wow, that's so fantastic. Did you discover anything in terms of a connection between stress and the immune system, also in connection with the foods that we eat, and
Yes.
how all of those work together?
Yes. Yeah. There's a huge, everything is interconnected, but I'm glad that you brought up this question, because stress and the eating pattern, immune system, they're all tightly connected. For example, when our body get into the stress mode, which is the fight or flight or freeze mode, that's when the body thought that you're going to be fighting a tiger, or if you can't fight it, you would try to flee, right? You would try to run for life. And when that happens, the body naturally will raise up your blood sugar and your blood pressure and your heartbeat, so that you can have all the energy in order to fight or flight, right? And with the modern day diet, especially the standard American diet, where people consume a lot of sugar in terms of the sugary drink, or a big quantity of white carbs, meaning the white noodles, pasta, or rice, or white pastry, those all fluctuate the blood sugar big time. And in our body, for a blood sugar to be considered safe and stable, that means the whole body, the sugar amount in the whole body, in our entire blood volume, won't be more than 1 teaspoon of sugar. That's like a 4 grams of sugar in a total body of blood. Wow. But imagine how much sugar that a lot of people eat these days. They're often, at the end of the day, probably 400 grams of sugar in their diet already. That to the body is a huge stress. And that's when your body got kicked into the stress mode. And that's when the blood sugar started getting even worse, because the food itself is already make it like a roller coaster ride. And that creates stress in the body. But then once the body senses, oh, there's a stress, it kind of just raises up the blood sugar even higher. And also it kicks out the adrenal gland to, hey, come out, the stress hormone cortisol, to come out to help regulate the blood sugar. So it's a kind of a domino effects, if you will.
Right.
And also when we are in the stress mode, if you are trying to fight a tiger or try to run for life, it doesn't matter if you have an infection or not. So the immune system was shut down temporarily, at least for the moment when you are stressed. And so, but unfortunately, with the modern lifestyle, there's so many things that would kick off our stress mechanism. And we're constantly, being stuck in that stress mode. And that's when everything kind of started derailing from the balance.
So this is a really good to bring up, because in many ways, I feel like that might be a big part of why COVID continues, because there's so much stress
right.
related to COVID and what's happening in our, globally, with businesses that shut down, just the way people are losing their jobs, or the job is changing that they may not be familiar with, and our connections to people, being able to hug people, being person to person, and the fears that go around that. So you've got this big ball of stress, which is going to bring your immune system down. And I'm familiar with this because I'm an at-risk person myself, which means that you're even more susceptible
Exactly.
to contracting that virus.
Right. Exactly.
So for me and my work is very complementary with yours, because not only am I working to help people manage that stress so that it's not affecting our body the same way. I want to see them be able to be healthier in what they're doing. But combined with what you do, it would really bring that whole body approach, because I really do believe that the mind and the body and the spirit work together. I don't think they're separate parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So
I'm glad that you brought this up. I'm really glad, because oftentimes when people look at COVID damage, we look at human lives. Of course, there's so many lives lost, and we are all very sad about that. But there are other damages too, and those that you just mentioned, that the mental health, the stress level, and all those other things, emotional parts, because due to a job loss or the lost connection with the other people, I would think, this pandemic really brought a very, I mean, in terms of the damage, we really look at the totality of it, not just the human lives.
Yes. And I know for me, I was one of the people that lost my work. I was a gig worker, and I worked for 3 different aspects of that. So I lost those 3, sole proprietorships. I was building a nonprofit. I lost that. I lost my home, lost my car, lost family and friends, both to death and to changes that I had to make to adapt. So the stress became high, and I moved to a new location with people I was unfamiliar with. So I was a new person in a new land and exploring new ways of existing, and not even knowing an endpoint, because that's something we're all dealing with. Where COVID is concerned is we don't have an endpoint. We don't know what that date is, or if there is one that's going to say, okay, everything's okay and we can move forward from here. We keep coming up with different variants, and they're getting trickier. It's almost as if they've taken on these artificial intelligences that they're like, oh, well, okay, you figured that out. Now we're going to give you something else to figure out.
Yeah.
So it keeps that stress going. And fortunately, I have skills that I'm able to put in place, as are you, my transformational art practice, which you've had an experience with.
It's amazing.
And I'm able to bring myself to a place where, okay, this is what is here, but I can manage this. I can get through this. As long as I can manage my day-to-day and only focus in the present, which is very difficult to do for a lot of folks. I think that I do believe that things are going to get better. And I do believe that, the good's going to win out over all of the difficulties that everybody's experiencing.
I see you, Katana, you're so resilient. And then I can see how amazing you are already dealing with all of these stress. I mean, I didn't know there's so many layers of it. But the way that you showed up at work, at your business and for your clients, it's amazing. I really admire you.
Yeah. Thank you. So do you see all these challenges you've gone through as invaluable lessons?
Oh, yes, definitely. To me, well, if we can change the past, if we could change the past, I would say I wouldn't want to go through the pain of loss, having lost a child. But since we cannot change the past, unfortunately, I am on the other side of the tunnel now. I really cherish my experiences and all those pain that propel the growth in my self-healing journey and my awakening spiritually. So, without those lessons and pain, I wouldn't have been me today, really. And that's, as I now look back, I think it's the biggest gift behind all the suffering. And I'm really embracing it.
That's beautiful. And I had a conversation with another guest that, everybody has a different way of wording what that looks like for them. Some people say opportunities, some people say gifts. But I do believe that we have lessons, and it's our choices as to how we respond to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is your superpower?
Okay, my superpower. I think for me is once I decided to do something, I'm always very dedicated, and I would always be the example of what I am teaching and preaching. So in coaching sense, I'm pretty confident to say that I'm always will be the example of my clients and someone that they can look up to and they want to be. So they will be inspired by what I look like, what I do, what I present in front of them. And I think that's the part that my strength in terms of coaching. And also, I realized because of all my own emotional and energy healing journey, I am able to kind of bring that aspect of the healing into my client's life. Because most clients who came to me at the beginning, they just wanted to deal with whatever health challenges they were dealing with, but they never really associate those challenges with emotions or with their mindsets. And when I was able to make them aware of that part, usually that's when the healing really kind of, make a huge leap. And I'm glad to be that conduit for my clients and the people around me.
And they're so fortunate and to have you. I definitely recommend anybody that wants to be I'm looking for the right word, to be turned on by food, that they view your pictures of food, because that will definitely do it. I know it worked for me. So give us a little about your business. What is your business?
So I am a holistic health coach, and I'm also a energy medicine practitioner. And what I do is that in addition to help clients improve their diet, lifestyle, I also made them aware of, like I said, the energy side of our body. Usually people only focus on the chemical side of the body, our biochemistry part. But they often neglect the emotion, the mindset, the limiting belief. And I have a very cool tool that would really introduce people to get into knowing their own energetic body. And that was, so far, that's a big blessing in my coaching, because once clients get into and see themselves through that way, they have a totally different view in terms of healing. And the other part of my coaching, important part, is that I often, that my clients know, is healing is not necessarily doing extra things. Most of the time is removing those factors that impede their own healing ability. That makes a huge difference. If they can remove those factors that affected their body, their emotion, spirit, then the body's own healing ability can kick in, and it can really just fix itself. And so I want the people to know, ultimately, is that we all have that power, and everyone has that healing ability. They have the best doctor living in their body, but they need to be aware of that and then reconnect with that part of themselves, and given the body time, patience, and conditions so that they can heal themselves. That's kind of my
Yes.
mission.
So empowerment, awareness and empowerment are really so important in our lives. We actually have so many tools to help ourselves. And that way, if there is something more serious and more underlying that needs attention from traditional medicine, it makes it more obvious. And then you can really go in and get that taken care of. Because I, like you, I don't want to discredit what they do. You know, I have a bad heart. I've had a heart attack and I've died. And without the heart procedure, I probably would not be here today. So I understand how important that is, but I also understand the importance of the awareness and empowerment to take control over our own health, our whole body health, which is mind, body, and spirit, because there's a lot of things I may have been able to avoid if I had stepped into that space sooner.
Exactly.
And I also want to say that your energy scan is amazing, and it is on the spot. I would have never imagined that it would pick up on the things that it did. I know with me, it was 100%.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage people to explore that with you.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. Yeah.
Yes. So now that we're coming up on the end of our time together today, what is one thing that you would say to your 18-year-old self, or tell your 18-year-old self?
Be patient and flexible, and embrace who you are, and letting go of the desire of controlling everything. Remember, I mentioned this in the beginning. I was stubborn and controlling.
Would you like to expand a little on that?
Well, I realized, that stubbornness, or cannot let go, and fixating on things, inflexibility, really give me a hard time. It creates a lot of stress in my life. And just not being able to flexible itself made my mind very narrow-minded, because I cannot see other things.
Right.
And that not just bothers my mind, giving me stress, it actually caused the stress on my body too. So I have many, many years, neck issue, just that tension. And the neck become kind of one of my weakest spots in the body. So when I was going through a whole series of bodily injuries, everything kind of just latched down on my neck. And I'm still, suffer from it from time to time. But that's kind of one way that I really realized later in my life. It's that thing, always stemmed from that stubbornness, that unwilling to let go, and inflexibility that caused me that.
Yes, the rigidity of,
exactly, rigidity is the right word.
Control, I think, is a good word for what a lot of us deal with, because that's why I like the term that I brought in, is manageable versus control.
Right.
Because you can't control the way you're going to respond to a bear showing up behind you. That your body's going to respond the way it's going to respond. But you can manage it and go, okay, I need to do this and take these actions right now, or I'm going to be bear food. So I really like that you
So
brought that
true.
in. um, because there are things that we can control and then there are things that we can't control, and it's how we manage that that really defines how our body is going to go through that. Our
Mhm.
mind, our body, and our spirit is going to make it through to the other side of that.
Yeah,
Well, I really
very
appreciate
true.
that.
Mhm.
Peilin, how can people reach out to you?
Yes, people can reach out to me on through email, and that would be Peilin at innatewisdomcoach.com. Innatewisdomcoach.com is my website. And so Peilin at innatewisdomcoach.com is my address, email address. And you can also look me up on Facebook, Peilin Chiu. Just search me up and you'll find me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here with me today, Peilin.
Thank you.
I really look forward to another opportunity to speak with you again in the future.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
And I wish you and our beautiful listeners a wonderful rest of your day, week, year, and I will talk to you again soon.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Transformational Art with Katana. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and share the link to this podcast with your family and friends. To connect with me personally, please send an email to transformationalartwithkatana@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.